Hello, I'm Colin. This is part of my story. I grew up with my brother and sisters in a small village in Suffolk. One day we got a knock at the door and a lady said she ran a Sunday school in the village and would we like to come along? And I, along with my brothers and sisters, all eagerly said yes. I mean, Sundays were so boring. And we went along. We went along for several years and we really enjoyed it. We learnt about God and Jesus and some of the stories in the Bible. But it didn't affect me. My life didn't change at all. Well, we stopped going to Sunday school, and as the years gone by, I entered my teenage years and grew very unhappy and wondering what was life all about. Then I remember one day feeling so bad. I really didn't know what to do. I was even thinking, is there any way out of this feeling apart from ending my life? And I can remember sitting there thinking, and I remember actually saying out loud, "Oh God, help me." And all of a sudden I started to feel a bit better. And I thought, that's odd. Why should saying those words make any difference to how I feel? But I knew it did. So I was intrigued. I wanted to find out more. As it happened, I'd been given a Bible and I started to read it. I thought the answer must be in this book somewhere. So I started at the beginning, in Genesis, and started to read. Every day I read a little bit. And about a year later, I got to the end. And around about that time, I got a phone call from this same lady who ran the Sunday school years ago, and she invited me to a Christian dinner. Well, I didn't really know whether I wanted to go to a Christian dinner or not, but she said the amazing words, "Don't worry, I'll pay." And as a poor student, someone offering to pay for a meal, well, how could I refuse? So I went along. And at first I wasn't particularly impressed with these Christians because they seemed very ordinary, and I'd read the book of Acts and expected some quite extraordinary things, but they seemed very ordinary. But what wasn't ordinary was when they started to worship, when they started to praise God in song, and I was just overcome by the presence of God. I just couldn't believe it. I thought, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. Anyway, nothing much changed in me. That night I went home feeling happier, certainly, than I'd ever done before, but didn't make much of a long-term difference to me. But next month I got another phone call from the same lady, would I like to come along to another one of those Christian dinners, and I eagerly accepted. Again, same kind of thing happened. Again, I felt this presence of God, that's all I can explain it. And during this worship time, and I can remember, while I was singing, quietly in my heart, I said to God, "God, I don't know what the right words to say are, but whatever they are, I'm saying them, and you can have my life, no strings attached." Well, I knew I'd done it, but I didn't know what I'd done. And I didn't know what happened next, and the meeting ended sometime later, and I was busily wondering what was going to happen, and this man made a beeline for me. And he didn't even say hello, he just said, "God's spoken to you, hasn't he?" Which I thought was extraordinary, but even more extraordinary was I heard myself saying, almost involuntary, yes, even though I didn't really know what that meant. And so he started talking to me, and he invited me along to a meal on Sunday, and I went along, and we talked after the meal, and he prayed for me, and I can remember handing my life over publicly and with those present, and yeah, I knew something had changed. Later on that day, he was going to a Methodist church to preach and to lead a service there, and invited me along, and I went along, and I recognised one or two of the songs that we sang were the same ones that were in these meetings, and again I started to feel God's presence, but there was a difference this time, because instead of just feeling there was a God around me, somehow God also felt inside me too. And I knew that I was a changed person, and I was. Things changed in my life, and I stopped swearing. I started reading the Bible more eagerly, and it started to make some sense. Things started, not that everything made sense, but it went from making no sense at all to things starting to click into place. And that's been pretty much it since then. And I'm not saying that my life was rosy and I have never encountered difficulties. I have and still do. But there has been a change in my life, because I've always known, in fact, as it says in the Bible, God promises, I'll never leave you, I'll never forsake you. And he hasn't. And that, for now at least, is my story. Thank you. Oh, yeah, I think